I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order then, and I'm going to read our little spiel to cover our electronic meeting. So the chair of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission has found that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, the SNHPC and committees thereof are authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. SNHPC is utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting as follows. Online access via the web link that's been posted on the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission page. Telephone only access is dial 646-558-8656, and meeting ID is 815-018-93877. These instructions have been posted on the SNHPC website at www.snhpc.org. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting, please call 603-669-4664 or email mduchesne@snhpc.org. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. So with that, Sylvia, if you would help me go through the roll call for attendance.
I sure will.
And if somebody wants to also make a motion on the minutes of last month's meeting, we can vote on those during the roll call too.
I'll move Linda Kuhnhart.
Thanks, Linda.
I'll second.
Second from George, thank you.
Thanks, George. All right, so let's start us off. From Bedford, we have Rebecca Hebert.
I'm here and alone in my office.
And just to also acknowledge, new from Bedford, Jillian Harris.
Dick Snow votes yes, and I.
Okay, thanks, Dick. So from Candia, we have Dick Snow. From Derry, we have George Sioris.
Yes.
Francistown, Linda Kuhnhart.
Here and abstain.
That's it. Bruce Thomas.
Here.
Londonderry, Colleen Malone.
I'm here and voting aye on the minutes.
Thanks, Colleen. Manchester, we have Jonathan Golden.
Here. Aye in the minutes.
And Kristen Clark.
Here.
And from New Boston, we have Mark Sunan.
Here and I.
Did I miss anyone from the communities? Sorry, Andrew Haddock from Chester.
And I vote aye.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, let's see. From our transit providers, we have Fred Roberge from Easter Seals.
Here and aye.
Thanks, Fred, and good morning. And we have Mike Witten from MTA.
I'm here and yes.
Thanks, Mike. We have Nancy Michaels from the Manchester and Londonderry Chambers.
Here and I.
Thanks, Nancy. And Tim White from New Hampshire DES.
Present and yes on the minutes.
Did I miss anyone from, oh, I did. William Rose from DOT.
Here and yes.
Thanks, William. And just to acknowledge today from Federal Highways, we have Lee Levine. And we also have Dean Williams from Central, and then a whole host of staff. And there's me, and I also vote, and I vote yes on the minutes. Okay, we're ready for the next thing.
Right. So it looks like new business. First up is Nate with a 10-year plan update.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm thankful that I don't have to do a lot of talking today. I'm still a bit under the weather. Yesterday I had pretty much no voice at all. Today I have a minimal voice, but I think I can power through here. Let's see. How's this? Can everybody see full screen?
We can.
I've got 96 slides to go through over the next few minutes. I'm just kidding. Just a recap of where we're at, we're pretty much at the heading towards the end here of our regional 10-year plan process. We've done our solicitation, we've evaluated the projects, we've had engineering cost and scoping review. We talked a lot about that at the last meeting, but basically we're headed towards our finalization of our 10-year plan priorities here by the end of this month to provide to New Hampshire DOT. Last month, we walked through all of the projects in significant detail and spent a large portion of the meeting doing that. I'm not gonna redo all of that, although I'm happy to answer questions if people have them. What all of that last month boiled down to was this set of kind of initial recommendations. So for the Manchester I-293 2nd Street engineering study, we talked about pursuing corridor study program funding for the 2nd Street component and then revisiting the I-293 component in 2 years once we have a better handle on turnpike revenues and how the impacts of COVID are going to affect turnpike revenues moving forward. We talked about focusing our regional allocation to add supplemental funding to our 2 existing underfunded 10-year plan projects, those being in Bedford, the Route 3 widening, and Londonderry, the 28 and 128 intersection. And then we talked about the new projects for the town of Derry's rail trail project, pursuing TAP funding as an appropriate funding source in this round. I know that George is putting the finishing touches on the town of Derry's TAP application as we speak. So the town of Derry is pursuing that. For the Manchester Exit 8 project, we discussed looking at the next CMAQ round of funding, potentially to do the adaptive signal control component to that project, and then revisiting the intersection capacity improvements with the next 10-year plan update. For the Manchester Campbell Street projects, we talked about doing potentially a CMAQ project also for the Hooksett Road and Campbell Street intersection, and then building upon that project with in the next 10-year plan potentially for the Campbell Street and Hamill Drive intersection. And then for the Deerfield Roundabout project, we talked about continuing to work with VHB and the town of Deerfield to continue to evaluate that project and get it and better refine what the impacts would be to right of way and some of the historic resources in the area. As a reminder, our regional allocation for this 10-year plan is $8.554 million. But when we're talking about that, I sound like a broken record here, but I think it's important for everybody to know when we're talking about $8.554 million, it is not expressed in today's dollars. It's expressed in year of expenditure dollars. That is usually, but not always, the final 2 years of the 10-year plan, fiscal 31 and 32 in this case. Inflation and indirect costs, inflation at 2.8% per year and New Hampshire DOT's indirect costs of 10% do reduce the present value of our allocation pretty significantly. So it's important to keep that in mind. We're not talking about 8.5 million in today's dollars. We're talking about those in future year of expenditure dollars. So our proposed use of the $8.554 million allocation, kind of building off what we talked about last month and what I just recapped on a couple of slides ago, would be to split that allocation between our 2 existing underfunded 10-year plan projects, adding $5.448 million of supplemental funding to the Londonderry project. That would get the Londonderry project completely to the finish line and fully funded. And then adding the remaining $3,105,000 in our allocation to the existing Bedford project, the Route 3 widening from Hawthorne Drive to the Manchester Airport Access Road. That would put that project substantially closer to the finish line. It would bring total year of expenditure funding up to around the $16.5 million range, which is getting closer. That's about the cost in today's dollars. So all that would be remaining for that project would be basically the inflationary indirect costs out to the out year. So We don't have enough funding with $8.554 million in year of expenditure dollars to do everything we'd like to do. But you know, we want to continue to make a good faith effort to get our existing 10-year plan projects to the finish line. This is the proposed allocation that we laid out in your staff reports that went out for this meeting. So you read about it in your staff report, and here you're seeing the proposed allocation here on this slide. So with that, I'm gonna save what's left of my voice, and I will yield the floor to any members of the TAC to provide comments as you may wish. Otherwise, we would certainly welcome a recommendation to our MPO, who will be making a final decision about this next Tuesday.
So does anyone have any comments or questions for Nate?
I saw Mark's hand go up.
Yeah, just two, I think, fairly quick ones. You said that the 5 point whatever million gets us to the full funding for the Londonderry project. I assume that includes any out years that are not in the 10-year plan?
Any out years like that are not in the 10-year plan?
Sorry, I should have asked it differently. Is the entire project from PE right away and construction all within this 10-year plan, as opposed to having some that go beyond this 10-year cycle?
For Londonderry, yes.
Okay. Is the same true for the Route 3?
Route 3, all of the construction, everything we have would be in the 10-year plan. It's not fully funded, though. It would still not be fully funded, but
Understood.
all phases of the project would be in the 10-year plan.
And roughly how much are we shy?
Probably depending on where construction ends up getting programmed for cash flow purposes, impacts the inflation. But I'd have to do some number crunching, but probably in the 4 to 5 million in year of expenditure dollars, and pretty much all of that would be inflationary and indirect costs.
Got it. Okay. Ballpark number, you're talking 4 to 5.
Yeah, we know that in kind of today's dollars, the project is in the 16.4 range. After this proposed allocation, we will have 16.4 in year of expenditure dollars. So basically the difference there would be inflationary and indirect costs. Inflation rates change every couple of years as DOT updates them based on they could go up or down. Indirect costs are 10% for DOT's work in kind of managing the project and the costs that they have. Those don't tend to change a whole lot year to year. So depending on how all of that fleshes out, my best estimate would be kind of in the $4 to $5 million range, but being that amount being pretty much inflationary and indirect costs out to the year of expenditure.
Understood. All right. Thank you.
I would move to send the project to the MPO, Linda Kuhnhart.
I've got a motion from Linda. Do you have a second?
Dick Snow from Candia, seconds.
Okay. Becky Hebert.
I vote yes.
Dick Snow from Candia.
Dick Snow, yes.
Andrew from Chester.
Andrew, yes.
George from Derry.
Yes.
Linda from Francistown.
Yes.
Bruce from Hooksett.
Yes.
Colleen from Londonderry.
Yes.
Jonathan from Manchester.
Yes.
And Kristen from Manchester. I think Manchester gets 2 votes.
Yes.
Mark from New Boston.
Yes.
Fred from Easter Seals.
Yes.
Mike from MTA.
Yes.
William Rose from DOT.
Is an abstention.
And Nancy from the Chambers.
Yes.
And Tim from DES.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
All right. So next up, James with TAP solicitation.
Great. I don't know if I can share my screen yet.
Yep, but you're all set.
Looks like I can. Okay, share. And all right, can you see my screen?
We sure can.
All right, great. As shown on the screen, I'm going to talk today about the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP, or round 4 for fiscal year 21-22. We're going to talk a little bit about eligible activities. The TAP program is broken into 4 eligible activities as defined by New Hampshire DOT. Those activities are construction, planning, and design of on and off-road facilities for non-motorized vehicles and pedestrians. It is also similarly construction, planning, and design of infrastructure, except this category is for vulnerable transportation users. So that'd be youth, elderly, disabled, minority groups, low-income populations. The third category here is abandoned railroad right-of-way conversions to trails for non-motorized transportation. And the fourth category is infrastructure devised from Safe Routes to School program that was developed under the Safety Lou legislation. In round 4, there's $7.92 million in federal funding that's been allocated. A certain set aside of that, 2.53 million, is for the New Hampshire Trails Bureau, which does a recreational trails program. I made this an active link. I assume we'll get this posted on our webpage, and when we do, if people want to check out that link, they can. It's easy to find. You can just go to New Hampshire state parks and you can find the recreational trails program. That program is structured much different than the TAP program we're going to talk about here in a minute. The projects are much smaller in nature and are much more based around hiking and rural trail environments and small scope projects. The part we care about and the part we're going to discuss today is the $5.93 million that passes through New Hampshire DOT through their Transportation Alternatives Program. And within that funding bucket, there's some obligations from the federal government to break out allocation of funding based on population. And this is an oversimplified summary, but 1.14 million of that funding is for areas with populations under 5,000, and DOT really kind of chunks those out by municipality. Another 0.92 million for areas over 200,000. Sorry, there's an error in what I wrote here. It's for populations between 5,000 and 200,000 in population. Get 0.92 million, and then this third category is 0.64 million, and that is for areas of the state with that are over 200,000 in population. And so it's broken into 3 categories, and then they have another 2.69 million of funding, which is unrestricted by population category, and that comprises the buckets of money or allocations that DOT has for this funding round. New Hampshire DOT received 41 letters of intent from 40 potential applicants. Demand for TAP projects is far greater than the available funds. The total funding request for this from the letters of intent received by New Hampshire DOT equates to $29.64 million. But as we just covered, there's only $5.3 million available statewide. And so of these 41 proposed projects, we may see as few as 6 of them be selected for funding by New Hampshire DOT. And that's less than 1 per regional planning commission. The timeline for the TAP program award and implementation is as follows. On February 5th, the letters of intent were received. On the 11th of February, TAC applications were released by New Hampshire DOT on their webpage. And this coming Friday, tomorrow, TAP applications are due to the state. And sometime shortly thereafter, we at the Regional Planning Commission will receive them for further review. In April, the TAP applications will be checked for eligibility by New Hampshire staff, New Hampshire Planning Commission staff, and then ranked by the TAP Evaluation Subcommittee, which is an action we will take today to select a subcommittee. This will be followed by a recommendation, a TAC recommendation, and an MPO approval of project ranking. And all of that will be submitted up to New Hampshire DOT for scoring by their TAP scoring committee. The New Hampshire DOT in May will provide a scoring and final ranking to the commissioner, Commissioner Sheehan, who will review and, if needed, modify that list, and then submit it to I spelled this wrong. I think it put submit it to governor and council for approval of TAP funding award in August of 2021. Thereafter, projects will start to roll out into implementation with DOT. So who in our region has submitted a letter of intent? The towns who submitted were Bedford, Derry, Goffstown, Manchester, New Boston, and Wyndham. And I'm going to briefly describe and show a map for each of the areas submitted. First up is Bedford. Bedford's project, as described in the letter of intent, is to construct a little under 4,000 linear feet of sidewalk on the east side of Old Bedford Road between Route 114 and Route 101. And so this red line here kind of designates the anticipated route for improvements construction. Next up is Derry. Town of Derry has proposed to construct a just under 2,000 linear foot extension of the Derry Rail Trail between Madden Road and the Londonderry town line. And this map kind of GIS map kind of shows the approximate area of that. It's an old railroad bed. And next up is Goffstown. Goffstown has broken their letter of intent into 4 separate geographic areas, so we'll cover each one of those individually. Their proposed project is to construct a 6-foot wide sidewalk on one side of the street for the following streets. And so the first one here is Mass Road, which is also known as New Hampshire Route 114, between Park Lane and Wallace Road, which is in close proximity to the Goffstown High School, which you can see at the bottom of the map there. Next up is construction of over 4,000 linear feet of sidewalk along Elm Street. If people are familiar with this road, it's kind of a connector to Manchester, a secondary connection to Manchester, an alternate to Route 114, and kind of has some denser residential settlement along the waterfront here, and visitors to some of the amenities on the water. Third here is Church Street, which is just it's within the village of Goffstown, off of 114, where North and South Mass Road come together. This Church Street is just to the south of Mass Road, which is New Hampshire 114, and the connection goes along a distance of 2,800 linear feet of the street, the entirety of the street. And then finally in Goffstown, 1,900 linear feet of Daniel Plummer Road. That's it for Goffstown. Next is the city of Manchester. Submitted a letter of intent to construct sidewalks and bicycle lanes on Hooksett Road and Union Street. As I mentioned before, there were 41 letters of intent from 40 municipalities. Manchester was the one municipality that submitted 2 letters of intent. They've withdrawn this particular letter of because there's a limitation of 1 application per municipality or applicant. And so this one has been removed from consideration. They will be not be submitting an application for this. The second in Manchester is the construction of a 4,800 linear foot multi-use path adjacent to the Canal Street between Granite Street to the south, which you may know as Exit 5 on I-293, and Brook Street to the north, which is just south of where the Amoskeag Bridge, Exit 6, off, sort of ramp off the bridge ends. And so the multi-use path would actually include a bit of a road diet as well. They would use an existing right of way that's already paved to develop this project. I think it also includes some ADA accessibility elements too, but that was not described in great detail in the letter of intent. Next is the town of New Boston. New Boston has submitted a letter outlining the construction of a tunnel under Parker Road to connect phase 2 of the New Boston Rail Trail to phase 3, which maybe Mark can correct me, but I believe is already underway, or the community is already developing that phase 3.
I could say they're raising money for phase 3.
Okay. And then finally, we have the town of Wyndham. The town of Wyndham has proposed to construct a 12,000 linear foot improvement of the Greenway Trail between Old Mill Road and Interstate 93. And then an additional, you can see it in blue over here, a secondary 1,000 linear foot improvement of state right of way of the same rail bed between I-93 and North Lowell Road. And then you can see they've outlined here that the Rockingham Rail Trail is in proximity to this project. That is the project. That is the summary of the letters of intent received within our region. Traditionally, the TAP evaluation subcommittee is comprised of TAC members who represent municipalities or agencies that did not submit a TAP letter of intent. And so today we are seeking 3 to 5 TAC members to volunteer for the TAP application evaluation subcommittee. And so I'm gonna take a moment to pause here and ask if anybody who is representing a municipality has not submitted an application would be willing to volunteer to evaluate these TAP applications when they come in, to please speak up and share your interest. We know based on the timeline that we will need to meet virtually between April 5th and April 9th at a time that works for all volunteers. And it may take as much as 2 to 4 hours to review all these applications and score them.
Dick Snow from Candia volunteers.
I can help out as well.
You need a third one, I can do it.
This is Bruce Thomas. I'll volunteer too.
All right, so we got our 4 reviewers. Are there any other takers, or shall we move on?
So I have Vic Snow, Candia, Linda Coonhart from Francistown, Bruce Thomas from Hooksett, and was that Colleen from Londonderry?
Yes, that was me.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Great, that was easy. The next action we have relative to this TAP application is reviewing the categories for evaluation, the criteria. And you'll see here on the right, there's a weighting associated with each criteria. And the weighting that's shown here is the weighting that was used during the round 3 TAP evaluation. And so, I think instead of me reading each one of these descriptions, I'll read through the categories and the sub-criteria categories. And if people want to discuss the descriptions in detail, we can do that. But the action we would like to take today, or we need to take today, is to set a recommendation for weighting for consideration by the MPO. And so I'm going to read through these categories, and if we need you know, if need be, if people want to go through these descriptions or discuss the merits of the descriptions, we can do that. And so the first category is potential for success. And that category is broken into 3 sub criteria. It's project readiness and support. And this really has a lot to do with support in terms of, you know, the town's leadership and advocacy groups, and readiness in terms of a holistically and complete thought of a project. The next subcategory is financial readiness. Does the town have the capital resources available to do this project? And then third is the feasibility. You know, are there constraints, whether they're environmental or otherwise, that would make this project difficult to implement? Are there right-of-way issues that are going to be a challenge? And so those things get a score as well. The next category is safety. Safety is broken into 2 sub-criteria: level of stress analysis. Level of stress analysis, if you remember from, oh geez, I forget, is it the statewide bike plan? It may not even be out yet. The stress analysis is a measure of how difficult that any particular facility might be to navigate for different competency of users. So, you know, from a young child up to, you know, very athletic bicycle riders. And so, you know, is whatever is being proposed, is it a high stress facility, or is it going to significantly reduce the stress of the facility? The second sub criteria is improvement of safety conditions, and it's looking to identify any recommendations or objectives that are safety related. You know, has a road safety audit been done? Has a corridor study been done that supports the safety improvements that this particular TAP facility would bring? The other category, the next category, is project connectivity. Does it fill a gap in the network? You know, is it connecting major origins and destinations? Is a rail trail connecting a major residential neighborhood to a major employment center? Things of that nature. Next is socioeconomic benefits. To what degree does a project provide opportunities to enhance the quality of life for minority, low-income groups and groups with limited English proficiency? And these are groups that are identified in Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission's Title VI Civil Rights and Environmental Justice program. And then finally, multimodal connectivity. To what extent does the project facilitate connections between modes? You know, can you take this rail trail to a park and ride facility? Can you take this new sidewalk to a bus station? Things of that nature. And so, as you can see here on the right, we have the weightings used from round 3. And so the staff, you know, as far as I know, staff, or I don't personally, and I you know, I haven't heard anything from staff about recommendation to the TAC. And so we leave it to the TAC to decide if this round 3 criteria is still appropriate and applicable for round 4.
So does anyone have any thoughts or comments on the criteria and the weighting?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on the level of stress line item. I heard you tell me what it was, but I don't get it.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know if Zach's on this call. Zach Swick from our office, a GIS analyst.
So I'll give a quick, do you want me to give a quick overview there, James?
You're going to do a better job than I am.
Okay. So what it is, it's just it's a measurement of how stressful a road is for different people. So like at what level does it become too stressful for a certain person to not ride it? So a level 1 would be, it's stressful enough, or, you know, it's not stressful enough that anybody can ride it. A kid can ride it, someone learning to ride a bicycle for the first time. And that goes up to 4, which a 4 would be somebody, you know, professional rider, somebody who's very experienced. And a 5 would be, it's not, you know, it's a highway, you can't actually ride it. So that would be the levels. It's a 1 through 4 saying how experienced of a rider do you have to be to feel comfortable riding this road?
Yeah.
Got
So
it. Thank you.
so like a neighborhood street.
Sorry, can I speak for a sec, Jay? Sorry, Kristen from Manchester. The application from the TAP was slightly different because it had a rating on an A to F and you had to select where you fit in. So it followed similar guidelines of your level of stress analysis, but the DOT's requirements were slightly different on where you selected it.
But it still reflected stress levels, correct?
Exactly. It's the same thing, like, you know, from a child can do it to you should be an experienced bike rider, but they rated it from, you had to select between A to F and the application gives a description of each one of those.
Rather than 1 through 5, you're saying?
Yeah, I think the one that Zach's referring to, it's 1 through 4, and you know, there's an extra level in the TAP application from which to select from.
So that was the only criteria I didn't understand. Now about the weighting column, can we decide to change those weights?
The TAC committee is free to make recommendations that will go to the MPO next week.
So I don't like the 10% weight for the socioeconomic benefit. That sounds too high to me, but I haven't decided where to give maybe 5% to. I think I would take 5% off of that and divide it up between a couple of items, but I haven't decided what to divide it up to. But 10 seems too high for that factor to me. Since we have such a small community that meets the definition. I guess I'd be tempted to take 5 off of socioeconomic benefits and add it to the multimodal connectivity, because that seems to be what the goal is, right? Is to connect up different methods easily. Is that sort of what we're hoping to do with TAC stuff, TAP stuff?
Does anyone else have any thoughts on, changing and reducing the socioeconomic and maybe increasing multimodal? I don't know. I maybe have a concern about, cutting that 10% in half and adding that to multimodal, but I'm open to, some change. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts.
Perhaps split it evenly.
So take the 5 off socioeconomic, give 2.5 to multimodal and another 2.5 to the level of stress. That would be my motion.
Any other comments or thoughts on and I guess I don't know if we want to take this kind of one change at a time, or if we can, if that's a change everyone by consensus is okay with, taking the 5 off and adding 2.5 to level of stress and multimodal each. If we have a consensus, that's okay. And then if there are any other changes people want to make before we, adopt a full motion.
I might just say, so Sylvia speaking, I might just say that the socioeconomic benefits and the populations those are to serve. So I would say that these populations are mostly unseen. They're not on this call. They are underserved because I think we don't see them. They're hidden. They're hidden to us, let's say. And I think that we have talked a lot in-house about how to get representation from those populations on this committee and in the MPO. It's not easy, but I can tell you from our conversations over the years, and not necessarily coming from a transportation perspective, but from our age-friendly perspective, one of the things we had heard was from a Manchester meeting was, if you're new to this country and you don't know how to use the bus system, for example, and you don't have a car, your United States is basically a 5-block radius. And that's your United States. You don't know anything outside of that. And I hear what you're saying, Linda. My just concern is to take 5% off that. All these categories, I look at these percentages, all these categories are so important. Certainly level of stress, I hear that. That's really important. Multimodal connectivity, yes. But I hate taking away so much from that particular category.
One thing I would note relative to Linda's concern about competition is that while there is a large chunk of that fund is unrestricted by New Hampshire DOT, Francistown falls into a different population category than Manchester relative to that point of view.
I missed that.
So I'll go back and we'll come back to this, but at the beginning of this slide, I noted that for areas under 5,000 population, they are allocated a specific bucket of money relative to the total amount, which is to ensure that the funding is evenly distributed amongst urban, suburban, and rural areas of the state. And so,
I saw Mike had his hand up, James.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
No, no worries. I just didn't know if maybe we could kind of compromise in the middle and maybe put socioeconomic and multimodal both at 7.5, kind of preserve some of that weighting.
Go for that. It's the whole part where, for instance, the project readiness is 6%. I just feel like please go ahead. I'm not trying to be discriminatory. I'm trying to say that 10% seems too high to me based on the other weighting factors in this analysis. I understand what Sylvia's saying. I understand there's a population of people who need help, but for this particular type of analysis, 10% seems too high for me. If we want to have some different thing that focuses on creating some specific project or a particular group, we hasn't been invented yet, right? I'm not clear on explaining myself. I don't. Please go ahead and accuse me of being discriminatory. I'm not. I'm stating that the 10% is high. I could go for the 7.5, and that would be close to the 6% up in the top column, and not too far from the 10% in the level of stress analysis.
No, and Linda, no one is saying that. No one is saying that you're discriminatory. I'm hearing you crystal clear, and I think that's a valid statement. Look at 6%, look at the 10%, the 5%. I'm totally hearing that. I mean, project readiness is vital.
And again, back to the level of stress analysis factor. If someone who has just moved here, someone who just got off a plane from some place where their whole life was a 5-block area where there wasn't any vehicles, their level of stress is going to be probably greater than a 3-year-old that was born here from parents who lived here for 5 generations, correct? That would be my assumption. So to me, increasing the level of stress factor does benefit that socioeconomic community.
Totally valid point. Well, we have a motion right now that's right, Colleen, we have a motion that we reduce the socioeconomic to 5. We put, what was it, 7, make multimodal 7.5, was that?
Yeah, I would be willing to amend the motion to meet that suggested by Mr. Whitten.
I'll second it with the amendment.
So just to be clear, what we're saying is it would be 7.5 for socioeconomic and 7.5 for multimodal.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's our motion and second. Do we want to continue discussion? I guess, is this going to be a motion to make a recommendation to the commission on the rest of this weighting with that change to the 7.5 and 7.5, or is this just to make that one change? Then we're going to have further discussion on other items. Are there other things in the weighting that folks would like to discuss or possibly change?
You know, I might mention that if we made them 7 and 7, we have that extra 1 and we could bring project readiness up to 7 as well.
Let's add it to level of stress.
Oh, you want to add it, you want to make level of stress 11 instead of making the project readiness from 6 to 7?
I would, because again, I think the level of stress from someone who's just come here is going to be higher than that's going to be higher for them. Yes?
Okay, so wait, right now, I think I'm hearing Linda say she wants to amend her motion to make it 7, 7, and 11. I think everybody follows that.
Mike, is your second okay with that amendment?
Yes.
So why don't we go ahead and vote on the, and just to be clear, is this a recommendation to the commission with those changes, or is this just to make that change, then we're going to continue discussing? I'm just not clear on that.
If no one else has any further comments, that would be my motion.
Okay.
With those changes to send it forward for the MPO.
Okay, so this will be a motion to send this forward to the MPO with that change that that we've discussed. So Sylvia, if you want to go through the roll call.
I will.
Thank you.
Becky from Bedford.
Can we just go through this again? So you're going to add, can you go back to the chart?
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. I guess I'm a little indifferent. I'm okay with the 10%, but if the group would like to make the change, discuss to bring it down and reshuffle that socioeconomic benefit, I'm okay with that as well. So I'll vote yes, but
Okay, just because Becky is a little bit wondering, I don't know, were you wondering what the final numbers were, Becky?
well, I was wondering what the final numbers were. I also was over here opening the TAP application because I'd love for our scoring criteria to mirror DOT's. So we're putting forward projects that have the greatest success of getting funded. And if DOT is keeping socioeconomic benefits high on their ranking criteria, I'd want to make sure we kept ours high too. But we're talking about just a couple points of
I think that every regional planning commission votes on these weights. They all have the same categories, but we all have different weighting. So for example, level of stress up in the North Country Council might be very different than ours, where we're more urban in some areas. So, and their socioeconomic benefits might be smaller. I don't know. But so this is, it's to be expected that every region has slightly different weighting. I believe, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. My other question was the socioeconomic benefits. You know, obviously we're in New Hampshire. We're not a very diverse state, except in our more urban areas. Is there a definition for that in the states or the federal grant process? And are we capturing all the conditions that would fall into that category? Like I was thinking about age, and I didn't see age as a example for an underserved population. Or
I believe
residents
used to be part of it, and they took it out.
We
They took it
at the
out?
regional level, we have always considered the Title 6 populations as well as elderly and disabled populations in the census tract.
Okay.
So the way that we've evaluated it at the regional level has included those Title 6 populations as well as elderly and disabled.
Can we add that to the text in parentheses, Nate, to make it more clear? Because
Yes, it should be in the text in parentheses. That's the way that we've evaluated it historically.
Okay. And Sylvia, can you review where the percentages would lie again?
Yeah, sure. So socioeconomic benefits would be 7%. Multimodal connectivity right underneath would be 7%. And up above under safety, level of stress analysis would change from 10 to 11%.
Which would necessitate safety to go from 24 to 25.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I vote yes to the change.
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question. I have a question about this. Did the town submitting TAP applications have criteria that they were trying to reach for their applications that are due? This might be that they based the application on grading criteria, and now we're changing the day before the applications are due. So did they have any criteria before?
I would say I don't think they saw these criteria without weights given to them. I think that's a fair statement. Kristen, tell me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, that's true. You know, the application is basically broken down exactly in these sections that you're filling out. You know, there's not like a specific section on socioeconomic benefits, but it plays into some of the overall connectivity elements that are in the application. So yes, this aligns with what the application is, how it's set up.
All right, I'm all set with that. You can proceed with the voting. Just wanted to know.
Okay, I will proceed. Good question, though. Dick and Candia.
Dick Snow votes aye to move things along.
Andrew and Chester.
I vote aye.
George and Derry.
I vote yes. Aye.
Linda in Francistown.
Yes.
Bruce in Hooksett.
Yes.
Colleen in Londonderry.
Yes.
Jonathan in Manchester.
With some hesitation, aye.
Kristen in Manchester.
Yes.
Mark in New Boston.
Aye.
Fred Easter Seals.
Yes.
Mike MTA.
Yes.
William Rose DOT.
Will abstain.
Nancy with the Chambers.
Yes.
Tim DES.
Yes.
And I will vote aye. Okay. Is that it, James?
That's all I got for you guys.
Okay, you can stop sharing. What happened to Mike? There he is. Mike, I'm just making you co-host.
Sounds good.
So you're all set.
All right.
I'll just note that I'll follow up with Dick, Colleen, Linda, and Bruce in an email with a doodle poll to see what works between the 5th and the 9th of April. And then we'll set an agenda as soon as I have more materials.
All right. So hopefully everybody, are you all seeing the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're going to cover, and I'm going to move it through it pretty quickly. I want to make sure Monique has enough time for her piece coming next. But we submitted our public transit agency safety plan to NHDOT, and it was approved a couple of weeks ago. There's not a lot different in here from what MTA was already doing. The big change is formalizing a lot of it, getting it into written form. Other than that, most of this is consistent with our past practices. You know, we already had safety committees, we had safety reporting. Some of the terminology is new. I mean, you can't ever have a new FTA regulation that doesn't require a 3-page glossary to understand what it means. But what we're going to focus on today are the reporting metrics, because I understand the MPO is going to have to take this up in the next couple of months too. So we'll slide up to that. As we identified, you know, looking at fatalities, injuries, safety events, we started with kind of this matrix here, shows you 4 categories: high, serious, medium, and low. We're looking at a combination of how likely they are to occur, cross-referencing that with, if they were to occur, how major that implication would be. So you can kind of see the table here: catastrophic, critical, marginal, negligible. And then there's a whole bunch of different likelihoods. So this is going to pop up in a couple of different places. So I just wanted to start here so that you kind of had this in mind, you know, things that are both very likely to occur and would be catastrophic if they did, would be the highest priority. And then it kind of works diagonally across so that something extremely unlikely to happen and that would be largely negligible, even if it did occur, really doesn't get addressed in this. So now we're going to back up to the performance targets themselves. And then this table is copied into your handout that was included with the agenda. There we go. Broken into two modes for MTA. So we run fixed route. That would be mostly Manchester area service. That would also include our intercity commuter lines to Concord and to Nashua. And then within the CART umbrella, this would include the Salem shopping shuttle. Demand response is going to include StepSaver, our paratransit program, all of the 5310 purchase of service regional shuttles, Goffstown, Hooksett, New Boston, and then the rest of CART service, which is demand response in nature. So some of the terminology is obvious and some of it requires a little bit of deeper dive. An event is broken into three different things. The first one is an accident. That could be anything. That's not just a motor vehicle accident. That's anything where there's a loss of life, where there's a collision of public transit vehicles, where there's an evacuation for life safety reasons. So it could be something like a fire or smoke. Report of a serious injury. To be serious, it has to require hospitalization for more than 48 hours within 7 days of the event, or result from a fracture of a bone, not including simple fractures, things like fingers, toes, and your nose. Cause severe hemorrhages or nerve muscle or tendon damage, or involve second or third degree burns over more than 5% of the body. So anything not including those 4 bullet points would be considered a non-serious injury, and that would get you into the incident category. And then the most non-serious element is an occurrence. This is basically anything else. So anything that doesn't trigger the higher thresholds for accident or incident, it's just going to get logged as an occurrence. Within the modes, you can see our safety targets, both in totals, that's going to be the first columns, and then as a rate. So we've used the standard 500,000 vehicle revenue miles. That's from NHDOT. I believe Mike Pouliot is hoping that everybody uses that same denominator so that you have comparisons across systems. For context, MTA operates just over 800,000 revenue miles between the two modes a year. For data geeks like me out there, that breaks down into 625,000 miles on the fixed route and 181,000 miles on demand response. And you can kind of tell because the rate categories are either higher or lower than the gross numbers. So in fixed route, we operate more than that. So the ratio becomes 1.6 injuries per 500,000 miles. Demand response is 2.75. Part of that is just the fact that they do so many fewer miles to begin with. I kind of skipped over it, but I should point out the goal and our history here are for 0 fatalities. Thankfully, we have had none in my 14 years at MTA. We hope that continues. The injuries would be 2 on fixed route, 1 on demand response. And then system reliability is a metric that charts how often a vehicle needs to be removed from service because of a major mechanical failure, because obviously that has an impact on passengers. So if you're switching vehicles or you're kind of left temporarily out someplace while a new one is sent, this includes kind of what you would think of on your face, things like engine, transmission, kind of major things like that. But it would also include a lot of the ADA accessibility equipment. So say it was a vehicle that had a lift and the lift didn't work, even though the rest of the vehicle was fine, that would count. Because if it's not accessible for all passengers, it doesn't get credit for being accessible at all. We would swap that vehicle out, put another one out. Would also include some of the key safety equipment. So maybe a headlight blows out, but it's evening service and it's dark. So you would have to swap that vehicle out. So some of it's not kind of first things that would come to top of mind. I'm going to pause here, see if there are any questions. I know this is something Nate really wanted to focus on, the safety performance targets. So before we go into any other sections, let's kind of see if folks have questions on this part.
So all of those numbers are your targets?
Correct. So it's the totals are kind of gross numbers. So you just think about, okay, 2 injuries on the fixed route system in total. And then the asterisk column is just taking that metric and dividing it by per 500,000 miles.
how much of your system reliability is based on the age of the rolling stock?
It's a big piece. So we are in a strong position right now. We will be finishing the last of our fleet replacement in 2021. So we have 8 more buses that are from 2007, 2008 that will be retired this year. So a year from now, when we do the next annual update in July, we should anticipate that that goes up even more, because at that point, the oldest fixed route vehicle will be 2017. So big improvement. Any other questions? Nate, does that cover the piece on performance targets you were hoping we would go over?
I would just note, Mike, part of why this is important, part of why Nate probably asked you to come here and present this is the MPO is responsible for adopting safety performance targets as well. You know, whether ours will match or not match MTA is, I think, to be discussed. But because our sole transit provider in the region sets a safety performance target, it triggers a need for us at the MPO to also do the same thing within our regional transportation plan or our network performance evaluation. So, you know, this is going to trigger some action at the MPO level at some point.
And this is based on, you know, the data that we use is less aspirational, I think, than if I kind of had my druthers. It's really statistically based, which keeps it grounded in real numbers over the last 5 years, but at the same time, to Mark's point, can make it a little harder to update when you make changes, because you have those last year's data pulling you back, even if maybe, you know, you had a series of vehicle that, for instance, we have some 2011 cutaways. They were our first foray into a low floor cutaway. The kneeling system on those buses is terrible. So they have a much higher frequency of just kind of getting stuck, especially in the winter out there. And if the bus can't unkneel, so that just means the whole thing lowers down so that the ramp is more accessible. The vehicle is kneeled and then it freezes there. It can't go anywhere. So that counts as a major system malfunction. Those vehicles, the last one will be gone this year. So I would expect that that no longer is a problem. We haven't had any issues with the newer ones. We haven't bought any Senator Elos since those first 3. And I don't believe they even make that model anymore because of that problem. But we'll be stuck with 4 years and then 3 years and 2 years. It will take 5 years to fully get that off of our plan. But it's kind of a compromise.
Is that type of paragraph attached to the back of the plan, like, you know, a little by the way? That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's not as much ability to put in your own narrative. FTA is really clear on, okay, these are the bullet points you address. Here's the guidance in how you come up with the numbers. And it really lets you then kind of do a parallel track. This is what we really think it should be. One thing that I did want to point out is the importance of it being an entire safety culture here from the top down. I think that is the only way something like this works. So if you were to look at MTA, say our workers' comp mod numbers in 2010, and then look at them in 2020, you'd see that our mod rate's gone from a 2.6 to a 1.1. And that, you know, for folks in that area, you know, that takes an awful lot of work, but it also takes a lot of modeling. You can't, you know, have policies on paper that you then don't enforce equally across all of the organization, or you don't model as members of senior management. You know, you go out and do something stupid just because it's funny, haha, but then you wouldn't expect the rest of the 150 employees to do that. You really have to, you know, model that positive safety culture from the very top, and that includes our board too. So we are fortunate our 5-member commission has really bought into this. We did it from both a safety for employees and passenger perspective, but also from a budget side, because we were getting absolutely crushed in cost for workers' comp 11 years ago. It was one of our major pieces. That's when we put in things like the Safety Management Joint Loss Committee, working with our union to establish, different levels of progressive discipline for things like vehicle collision. So that's carved out of our labor contract with our union. It has its own set of discipline and training requirements and everything, recognizing that that was something we were really struggling with. And we're very proud of where we've gotten to now. And then this hopefully is just documenting that so that we don't fail to stay on the line. We've gotten to where we want to be. Now we've just got to maintain that. I'm not going to take you through all 26 pages of this. I mean, it's thrilling reading. If anybody wants their own copy, let me know. I can send it to you. I'm sure the Planning Commission has it as well.
I have one question for you, Mike. This is James Bayo. Has this already been sent to FTA and acknowledged?
Yep, this is done. So we sent it to DOT first. We got the state's approval. Then our board approved it on February 23rd. That's when we transmitted it over to the MPO and uploaded it to FTA to trams. So FTA, because of the size of MTA, doesn't approve it directly. The DOT approves it, and then FTA will review it as part of our triennial reviews. I'm sure the next time we'll hear from them.
I think Nate was going to just quick come on.
Yeah, sorry, I got a little company with me here. My little boy is dismissed from daycare this morning and was knocking on the door, so he's just banging on the keyboard here. But yeah, thank you, Mike. And one of the reasons why we wanted you to come today and speak about this was you're the only transit provider in the region that is setting these targets. When we set targets as an MPO, it's going to be natural for us to just recommend that we adopt your targets, basically mirror your targets at the regional level. So you kind of setting the stage with this discussion helps bring people up to speed so that it's not completely coming out of the blue when we recommend kind of mirroring your targets at the regional level next month or 2 months from now.
Yeah,
So
and our process is continuous. So this document gets reviewed every year in July. Then it passes through me and ultimately to our board every August. So this is going to be a living document. Our first draft was actually finished in October of 2019. So this has been about 1.5 years from first draft to DOT approval. So there's a lot of weeds we can get into if anybody's interested offline afterwards. I would love to talk transit.
All right, Monique, you're up, and I've already made you co-host.
Great.
You want to start sharing, Mike?
Are we live? Awesome. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's almost my favorite time of the year, data collection season, which is just as soon as we can get out on the road with no snow. So today I'll be going over our fieldwork that we already have slated, and then also go over some projects that we're hoping to partner with some of our municipalities on. Today you'll be hearing from myself, James and Adam, and also on our field crew is Cam this year. So our main entree as the MPO is traffic counting data. We maintain about 1,200 permanent active sites across the region. Each year we hit about 400 sites. This year we have 408, and it ends up being about half of the load is counts assigned from DOT, which is used for their annual state monitoring and any other projects they need the data for. And then another 200 counts that we maintain for our SNHPC regional travel demand model. And both of these have viewers that you can look at the data on. And so the DOT viewer is called MS2. It can be kind of hard to find the link, so if anyone wants it, it'll be in our newsletter, which will have an article on the fieldwork that we have planned as well. And then we also have a viewer on our own website, which contains data from our SNHPC travel demand model counts as well as the DOT counts. So in addition to our loads that we do every summer, we take special request counts from our municipalities, and we encourage them to get them to us earlier in the season rather than later, but we're always willing to accommodate them in our weekly routing schedule. The different types of counts that we can provide for you are volume, speed, turning movement, and vehicle classification. And I'll just give a brief overview and some deliverables so you guys have an idea of what we can get to you. Our basic count is just a volume, a one tube setup, and we can splice the data however you want. We can do 15-minute, 30-minute, or hour-long intervals. And with that, it also provides AM and PM peak volumes. We can also provide speed data for your municipality. And so it just takes the volume data, splices it up into different speed categories. And then there's also summary statistics for however long you want the count out there. And previously we've used this, or a municipality has taken advantage of this and caught an early morning speeder that was bothering people. So are they able to track down exactly what it was and then chat with that person a little bit about their speed. And then we also conduct turning movement count. So that's when we deploy our MyoVision camera. It's a camera that goes up on a telephone pole pointing down at the intersection. We only collect this data for 24 hours because it is video data that gets processed and then comes back to us, and it gives you volume by direction that the vehicle was going. And then we also conduct vehicle classification counts. So this is another two-tube setup, and the data can be spliced into the 13 different vehicle classifications. And next we'll have Adam go over our bike ped counting program.
All right, so a little bit of background on the bike ped counting program. We bought our first infrared bike ped counter back in 2017. The counter counts directional traffic, but does not differentiate between cyclists and pedestrians. In 2019, we bought a second counter, and you can see on the chart there on the right how our number of counts has increased every year. We started with, did mostly sidewalks in 2017, and then more of a mixture in 18, 19 turned into mostly a trail. Wanted to get a baseline data on our region's trails, and 2020 was a pretty even mixture. So we count for a few reasons, to get baseline data on who's using the trails, who's using the sidewalks, capturing seasonal trends that you'll see on the next slide. We did event, sorry, do you mind going back, Monique?
Sorry.
It's okay. We counted for the Elm Street Car Show in Manchester for a few years running to compare event traffic. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon, but that was another thing we could use the counter for, and to justify investments in infrastructure. So for the TAP that we just discussed, it's a good way to get some background data on who's using the trails before any improvements are made. Where we count, you can see the two maps there. On the left is our region. We've counted in 12 of our 14 communities so far. The orange dots are sidewalks and the blue are trails. And then on the right, you see that's just a blow up of Manchester. We've gotten around to quite a few sidewalks in Manchester at this point. And if you go to the next slide, please, Monique. This is an example of a count that was done on the Londonderry Rail Trail in both summer and winter months. You can see what you're looking at here is a 24-hour profile. So the main peak of the day was around 9 a.m. and then pretty even usage in the afternoon, peaking around 6, and then pretty drastic decline when it gets dark, obviously. You can see the summer is well above the volume of winter use, but the patterns are pretty similar. So that's just one example of the type of data we can get, and we do take town requests. So if there's any locations in your community that you'd like to see counted, you can let us know.
Awesome, thank you, Adam. Next, I'll be going over our SAIDS program. So for those of you who don't know, SAIDS is the Statewide Asset Data Exchange system. And so it's comprised of UNHT squared and then partners with various state agencies and other agencies across the state. SAIDS hosts various data collection tools, as well as maintaining that data and displaying it. SNHPC has the capacity to maintain or support these programs this year: the road surface management system, stream crossing assessment, and the pedestrian infrastructure inventory. RSMS, the road surface management system, is an assessment tool. So we go out and we conduct a windshield survey of the municipality's local road network. It's assessed in quarter-mile segments, and we collect various condition data. And so what that yields is a pavement condition index, a score of the quality of the pavement, as well as a index for the entire road network. From there, we're able to look into how quickly the road will degrade. And then we also can work with you to suggest treatment and prevention options to maintain and improve your road network. This year, we're hoping to partner with the municipality on a pedestrian infrastructure inventory. This is an asset management tool with an emphasis on Americans with Disabilities Act. And so we collect various data on length, width, slope, and other data on sidewalks, curbs, ramps, and crosswalks. And this project requires a local match. This project can be used for an asset management tool, working on maintaining your pedestrian infrastructure, as well as looking at connectivity issues in your municipality. Next, James will go over our stream crossings program.
Yeah, so many of you have heard me talk about the stream crossing program in the past, or have heard me talk about the vulnerability assessment program. As a recap, the stream crossings inventory through SAIDS is the primary vehicle that New Hampshire DOT, in New Hampshire Geological Survey, and Department of Environmental Services uses to catalog environmental and condition factors around a myriad of stream crossing types that exist, from small bridges to culverts to stuff that might look like drainage but is actually a stream. And so that build out began quite some time ago, probably about a decade ago, and our region now has a fairly complete inventory of stream crossings at over I want to say 1,500 points documented. And again, this year we're going to go out and collect approximately 60 sites across the region. We try to distribute our collection so that we collect stream crossings in every town, and I think we'll probably achieve that again this season. And really what we're focused on this year is collecting sites that are really missing sites. So even though we have a fairly complete, there are some corners in areas that were missed, and so we're trying to make sure we gather the last of the stream crossings that are not captured within our region. And so that's our focus this summer. And then just to recap, this data has been proved tremendously useful for analysis. And so what you're seeing here in the screen on the right is a map of the prioritization scores for documented stream crossings within the region, which was a point of focus for the vulnerability assessment we did for the region. You may remember I submitted that, or SNHPC adopted that vulnerability assessment in September of 2020. And so, I've even heard Andrew Haddock, who's on the call today, we spoke a little bit this week, and he said, this is proving to be a useful tool for, even local analysis for the capital improvement plan or emergency management. And so we're finding this is a useful tool, and we're hoping that it continues to be so moving into the future. If there are particular stream crossings that you are looking for that you can't find in this map, let us know about it. We want to know, and we'll add them to our list of places to collect.
Thanks, James. If anyone has any questions, I can try my best to answer them or redirect them. If you want to work with us on any data collection, we're happy and excited to do it. So please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think Colleen said she would have to leave a little early, and I think she has. I'm not seeing Londonderry anymore on, so I'll just keep going. That was great. Thank you. That was a lot in a short time, so that was an amazing, quick and not so dirty, quick and quite clean presentation. So thank you. And Carl, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. I want to squeeze in the fact that we have a second round for the HSIP. Can you throw that in?
Yeah, there's basically, we heard from New Hampshire DOT that they want to do another round. I understand that's probably because of the deficit from last year. We didn't have any submissions last December in our region. I think everybody was heads were in a different place. But if this is the road safety audit program. And so if your community has any location segments or intersections with a history of incapacitating injuries or unfortunately fatalities that are documented, we have to be able to provide traffic reports of this. We would like to work with you. They're due June 1, but let us know sooner than later. And because we would need to get those in by June 1. So just reach out to us, ideally before May. We don't want to do this at the end of the time frame, but I think letters went out already for that include a bunch of different services we provide. The applications, I believe, are on the website, and maybe we should forward that out, just a link to everyone directly.
Yeah.
Any questions, you can just contact me.
Yeah, we recently sent out, or if they haven't been sent out earlier this week, they're probably going to be sent out today, talking a little bit about all these different programs, the traffic counting, the road safety audits, a whole host of projects. So if any of you are interested, or you have different staff in your departments that are interested, I think a couple years ago, what was it? Wyndham's police department had us, I want to call it a stakeout just to be groovy, but it was to check on speeds in a certain area. And so then they could tell exactly by our data when the speeders were going down a certain road. So yeah, stakeout. Anyway, so whatever your needs, please let us know. We always want to work with you. And I think that about wraps us up. 10:55. Any final questions from the group before we let everyone go?
No
Okay.
questions, but I want to thank all the people that spoke today. Appreciate it.
Oh, great conversations, Linda. Thank you for bringing all this up. I think the conversation was really good around the criteria. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if we all had, I don't know, so much more money, and if you could have 1,000%, we would have 100 on every single one of these. But anyway, these are difficult decisions, and I appreciate it. So do we have a motion to say goodbye? We got that from Mike, and I'll just thumbs up and a little wave from everyone. And thanks so much for your time today. We'll see you in a month, if not sooner. Thanks again.